Hey, I'm Amadeus, and this is Gay in Rural France, a podcast where I talk about queer life in the countryside, mental health, and everything in between. Let's get into it. In between DIYs, I'm recording a podcast. When you're just listening, you don't see it, but I love these San Pellegrino drinks that have little flavors. I didn't grow up thinking that rest was allowed. And I don't know how you feel about this, but even here in rural France, with silence and birdsong, I find myself rushing sometimes and pushing. Today I want to talk about rest and what it also means in the whole queer perspective within the LGBTQIA community, because I do find that it is connected, and I will talk about it a bit later on, what I have researched and what kind of questions I was asking myself. I mean, all of this isn't advice. I'm not a guru. I'm not someone who knows it all. It's just I would say I'm a very self-reflective person, and I sit down and I think about a lot. How I design my life, how I want my life to be, how I am acting in the context of society, and how society is also shaping my decisions and also sometimes my anxieties. But yeah, so I think I have learned a lot throughout my short life of 38 years on this planet, and I just love sharing it with you guys, and I love also hearing your stories. So, why rest is hard even in the countryside? Let's get into it. And I asked myself, when did I last truly stop? I don't know. I literally don't know. I think it was February and we are in May. And that was when I was on vacation in Mexico. And we were just having the time of our lives for a weekend getaway where we basically splurged and spent a ton of our money just to go there. But it was so worth it to detach, and we've saved up for that trip for quite a long time. So I was really looking forward to that, and we combined it also with visiting my family. And I think just being then in Texas, where part of my family lives, and just being there detached me from so many things, already just leaving the continent. It was really nice. So I think that was the last time I truly stopped. I did not open my computer once. Why does productivity feel safer than stillness? And that is a really good question, and that I think is problem of our education system, I find personally, because we're being taught that if we're not productive, we're really lazy, and the absence of productivity and the absence of outcome is something that is lazy. So that's why we end up with a society that thinks artists are lazy, but we totally forget to teach our kids that being bored is actually the number one key to creativity. And without being bored, you cannot think about big contexts. Think about all the big writers of our time, all the big painters. They all had a lot of time, a lot of privilege of time. Most of them were quite poor and had to fight for their life, but they had a lot of time. And I don't want to glorify anything of that, but I do think that that this is really a societal problem that we embody. Is that the word? We kind of put it in our very nature, in our very being, that if we're not productive and if whatever we do has not an outcome that can be sold, that can be monetized, that's the same, but that can profit somebody else. Basically, it's all about profit. And this comes with capitalist society. I know I come around capitalism quite a lot, but I do believe that it is the source of a lot of problems that we have today. Although other systems are also not maybe the greatest systems. I just want to put it out there, let's not get political. What happens in me when I try to rest and can't? Sorry, that was my boyfriend's dog moving the camera. I usually like I sit down for a bit and then I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna quickly sit down, and then I treat rest as something in between, rather than like a action in itself, and rather than thinking of it something that will fill up my battery again. And it's more, I treat it more almost like a treat or something that back then when I was smoking, I treated cigarettes like this. I was like, oh, I'm gonna clean and I'm gonna have a cigarette. I'm gonna do this task and I'm gonna have a cigarette. And that was my rest, you know? But I think it goes so much deeper than that. And I think the problem of myself actually is that I'm wearing a lot of hats. I'm doing YouTube, I am a dancer and choreographer, I organize a dance festival, I organize right now still retreats. I have a retreat coming up, but I've actually stopped doing the retreats. I will stop them. It's the last retreat that I'm receiving because it's just too much, you know, all the admin work, all the things. It's like constant. And you, if you wanted to, you could never stop. You could just keep on going because there's always something to tweak, always something to make better, always something, you know. But I think that's the problem. There's always something. You hear me? I'm talking about tweaking, about like optimizing. That's this optimization culture. It's absolutely, it's in our very cells. It's crazy. When did all that happen? And I think what people usually see with all these jobs, especially in the creative industry, is that they see the tip of the iceberg, but they do not see the main bit of the iceberg. They do not see the big chunk of work that is actually there when you have to, what you have to achieve actually to get to that tip of the iceberg. They just see the outcome, but not all the work. Just sounded like something fell over in my garden, but it didn't. And then some of us might have a helper personality like me, and they then will also get, and then they will also use all their free time to help others, which is also not resting. No, boo, it's not. I'm sorry, but yeah, I think we need to find a way to rest, and also to see queer rest as something political. And I find this very, very, very interesting because I have a quote from Audre Lorde that says, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation." And she is so right with that, because especially as queer people, I think we are constantly performing something. We're performing stability, we're performing selfie, we're performing worth, because already when we get out into this world and we out ourselves, we're suddenly like this, you know, there's no role models. Like look around you, like where do you see something, a depiction already of me as a gay cis man, which is like quite normal. I mean, it's become very, very daily. But then think of lesbian couples, think of trans couples, think of like all the different colors of the rainbow that include the queer community, the LGBTQIA plus community. We aren't represented in this society, not enough. Everything is heteronormative. Everything that you see is heterosexual in this world. So we are constantly busy with performing for others to fit in. And I think we need to really, really understand that rest is not laziness. It's pausing from the performance as well. Performing a certain kind of personality that we need to have in this society. And I think often we don't grow up with a softness and a room to just be. And I think that is slowly changing, and that parents of queer kids are actually realizing that they need this safety around, that they need their child to be safe in whatever their decisions are. because I didn't experience that. I know that I was trying out like mascara and eyeliner and everything, and my parents sometimes made fun of me and things like this, you know. So you're always performing, and already as a teenager, you're so hormone led, and everything is so much more intense. So I think that rest, yeah, rest is the opposite of hiding. It's existing without needing permission. And this we do not get a lot as queer people. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. So what roles do I perform even now? And I do find myself, especially in the French countryside, performing a more heterosexual role than I would take, you know? I wouldn't dress the way I was dressing in the city. And even in the city I had looks for that, you know? I had like cute bags, and I sometimes wore women's tank tops in summer and things like this, because I just found them cute. They were flowy, they were nice, you know? And I really love this kind of like androgynous type style of dressing and of fashion, and I really love the discrepancy of a male body, even like a more kind of like a muscular buff body, and then something really feminine. I just love it. And I'm not saying that I'm muscular or buff, I wish I was, but that's a whole different topic to talk about. And when do I catch myself conforming instead of resting? I think all the time, especially, yeah, just being outside, and also just like working at home. It I see that still try to squeeze myself in a societal pattern of how work is supposed to be done and how life is supposed to be lived, you know. And I think one person in the commentaries that I read today was saying that I should stop whining, and it's really not whining. I'm not complaining about my life, and I know that I lead a very luxurious life, but that also has a price. And I think we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I mean, yes, I live in a chateau, but it's, first of all, it's not a huge chateau. Second of all, it's a half of a chateau. Third of all, it is in the middle of nowhere in France. Yada, yada, yada. But I chose a totally different concept of life. I chose to not have stability, and that is okay. Some days it's not, but some days it is. You know, it's. I think we all need to keep this in mind. So let's move on to rest. What rest looks like for me, and where I fail, because I think that's good examples to see what I'm talking about here. Do I know how to rest when I'm alone? And I have to tell you that I do not, because I only rest properly when there's other people around. I know it sounds totally stupid and silly, but when my boyfriend is around, he's really like the opposite of me in that regard, that he's really calm. I mean, I'm also really calm, but he's you know, he's not as driven to do stuff all the time. So he's like, oh, let's take a nap. And I was like, when I'm like, oh, but we could do like 1 million things. We could go into the garden. I could weed. I could do this. You know, I'm always looking for a thing, but it's good because he slows me down. You know, am I actually resting when I'm on walks? If I'm still researching or planning? That's a good one, because I mean, I did talk about all of this in my research, and kind of like had an internal dialogue about this. And I came to the conclusion that even on my walks, I am working, because I'm taking notes constantly for the podcast, for example, for YouTube videos, for things that happen, for my artist work. So I think I'm never really detaching, and that's just one of the prices you pay also for being freelance. But I think that I really need to learn to implement rest more and not use my walks because I feel that I don't have enough time. Because there's always time, you know? There's always time. What helps me detach from doing? That's a hard one. I wouldn't even know. What helps you detach from doing? What would you say? I think it really, I get best detached when I am not in front of the project, which means at home I'm in front of the project, because this house is my project. This village is kind of my stage, as you would say. So I'm always lingering around those thoughts of work. So yeah, I think I really need to implement that much more into my life. And I think what I also would like to mention is that rest can be light or deep. That's what I also wrote down. We have you can take a bath, you can take a nap, a moment of silence. Like I said, just like take your partner and cuddle with him, and do that during the day. I think it's what we also sometimes just forget, and how closeness plays a big fact in all of this, and in rest and being restful. And if we have a partner, to have this closeness, this physical closeness, I think it's essential for rest, to be at ease, and even if you don't have a partner, but maybe with your best friend. And I've experienced it already in ballet school. We always, like, I think we had like huge cuddle groups where we would just be like with one another and just like hold each other and just spend whole Sundays like this, and cuddle, because yeah, I think it's really, really important, this physicality without the sexuality. And if you have a partner, yeah, absolutely go for the sexuality. I mean, but I mean, not in a sexual way in the first place, you know. And also digital detox is a big thing. I'm also this problem that I scroll for days and days and days, and yeah, and then saying no, having boundaries, and resisting urgency, because any urgency we are creating ourselves usually. I know that there's urgency. I mean, we're not talking about anything like life-saving or life-changing, but I'm talking about any task in the end. Is it really urgent? I'm not sure if every task is really urgent. And that's coming from me, who loves cleaning and stuff. And then I think rest can also be a ritual and shouldn't be an escape. I myself often treat rest as a pause before the next task, like I said, and then I use it more if we use the example of punctuation, then it's more like a comma than a full stop. And I think that's already good, but what could we do more, you know? What if rest was the center of the sentence? And I think it's the rest as a rhythm. And that's what I talked about also in my other podcast about performing calm, is that sometimes, especially as creators, or also just as normal people living their lives, that we sometimes like perform all this calm. We go to yoga classes, we go to meditations, but do we really let all these things happen to us? Or are we already thinking ahead, or are we already thinking of all these things? And I think it should not be a reward or an indulgence, and I think it's the pace of life in general that just we need to take back a bit. And I'm trying that here. It is hard. It is hard if you've grown up in a capitalist society. It is very, very hard, because you struggle with self-worth, you struggle with thinking that you're lazy, you struggle just with detaching, all the things that we've been talking about. And the world is constantly asking for more content, more work, more commitment, more interaction even, you know. So I think we all need to take a step back. Well, but in the very end, I am not here to tell you that you should rest more, because I also don't rest enough, you know. So it's hard for me too. I'm just putting it out there. I thought it would be a really interesting topic to dive in, and I think we have captured a bit and walked through it a bit, and maybe it left you with some food for thought. And I think that rest in our time is a form of resistance, of queer resistance as well. Resistance is all the ways we've been taught we're not enough unless we're producing. And I think that is really, really true. So, what does rest for you look right now? Have you let yourself stop lately? I love to hear your stories. And we are coming up to the very last podcast, and next week or in 2 weeks we will actually sum up this season. I will let you know what we'll be talking about in the next season, because I'm already like slowly starting to prepare it, and we'll take a 2-month hiatus, but I'll be feeding you still some shorts here and there, but mostly the podcast will be coming back in September. But we still have one more episode to go. If you'd like the podcast, then subscribe and hit the like button if you're on YouTube. Leave a review if you are just listening. I hope you had fun, and I will see you in 2 weeks. All that's left to say is à bientôt et au revoir from the southwest of France. Bye and bisous!